gosh, it's so hot. I didn't expect this weather coming from where I'm coming from.
It must be like 3 times.
It's like 10 times worse. So I was in Indonesia to cover the aftermath of that 7.5 magnitude earthquake that happened on the 28th of September. We left here on the 10th of October, so it was a couple of days afterwards, and then we basically were in transit for about 3 days just to get to Palu, which is where most of the devastation took place. And yeah, it was an eye-opening experience because you get to see how other people live and just how earthquakes affect other countries in terms of disaster relief, the basic necessities that we take for granted, such as water. I mean, I remember we went to the village of Padobo, and there it is really hot. You know, you take the humidity in Durban, times that by 20. I'm not exaggerating, because this village is near a mountainous area as well, and so the water there was scarce. So scarce was the water that even some of the residents were reportedly fighting amongst themselves for water. That's how hectic it was, and I can't seem to get the image of this dying cow out of my head. It was a skinny cow that was just sitting there. You can tell that it is so weak it can't even move, and it was also an indication for me that the disaster was probably way before the actual earthquake took place, and just how the outskirts of on the west coast island of Sulawesi have been neglected. Because even in terms of disaster relief, there was a bit of a struggle for residents there. There were many areas such as Potobo and Balaroya that didn't necessarily get any resources or disaster relief. I mean, I interviewed one mother. She's 60 years old, and she was stuck in the mud for 3 days. And she has a 38-year-old disabled son who survived, and this is because his 15-year-old niece carried him on her back for those 3 days that they were floating in mud. The mother had held on to one of the pillars of her home, and just an indication of how dire the situation was, she wasn't even rescued by Indonesian rescue workers. It was her son, who lived in another town, who came searching for her and eventually rescued her. So these are some of the stories that really touched me, and looking at how they live there, just they living in tents that barely have anything. Some people actually had to take their building materials from the rubble of the actual earthquake to have makeshift accommodation, and yeah, not having water in such a hot area is really something that you cannot forget. I also remember going to inspect in the Balaroya village and being greeted with a stench, which was an indication of the dead bodies, the decomposing bodies that were underneath the very rubble I was trampling on. It's something you cannot forget. If you've ever smelt a dead rat, just imagine the smell of a dead rat, and then imagine decomposing bodies for about 10 days. So yeah, that was Indonesia, and the crisis is still going to continue well after a mass grave has been declared, well after a monument has been erected. The kind of damage that has taken place to the infrastructure, it's going to take a couple of years, and this is why organizations such as the Gift of the Givers have also taken it upon themselves to have a more sustainable project. They're going to continue partnering with the local NGO there, Triple PA, to fundraise for a housing project to build homes for those who lost their houses during that earthquake.